Okay, welcome everyone to the webinar today. We're just waiting for a few more people to join. Those eagle-eyed amongst you will notice the incorrect date on the first slide, so that's a good start. So what I'd like to do is to just ask the Bentley staff that are online to turn their camera and mics on, then we can quickly introduce ourselves. Perfect. So my name's Tom Russell. I lead the Future Talent programs at Bentley Motors, and I'll be taking you through a bit of an overview today of some of the vacancies that we have on offer, and then you'll get to hear from some of our managers and our apprentices that are currently on program at the company, and ask any questions that you've got about the vacancies that we have, particularly in the production areas on today's webinar. So Rob, could I ask you just quickly introduce yourself first?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Tom. My name's Rob Williams. I'm the manufacturing training manager, so responsible for training apprentices, colleagues in all areas of the production setup.
Sharon, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, so I'm Sharon Stinton. I'm production manager on the sew line for GT Continental.
Thank you. April?
Hi guys, I'm April Tasker and I'm a production apprentice in my second year in paint.
Thanks, April. And Henry?
Hi everyone, my name's Henry Edkins. I am a third year apprentice in the wood shop.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So we'll hear more from our staff and apprentices in a moment. If we could just turn off mics and cameras again, and I'll take you through a few slides just to overview the company and the opportunities that we've got on offer this year. So that's the people we just heard from. So our factory is located in Crewe, Cheshire. I'm sure a lot of you knew that, but just to confirm where we were. And our factory actually has all functions on one site. So we see products go through the process of design all the way through to after sales, manufacture, coming out of the factory, and then the after sales function on the same site as well. So it's a really nice thing that you get the product built on one side, and you can get within 5-10 minutes to different parts of the company and different parts of the business. Obviously, quite a few are working remotely at the moment, but our production facility in Crewe remains functional and is still all go at the moment. We produce the Continental Flying Spur and Bentayga and derivatives thereof all on that one site. So all our products come from our one site, and then we also have our mullining department as well, which is very specialized bespoke products that come out of our mulliner department, which integrates in some areas with the main production site, but also sits across the road in its own specialized workshop as well. So within production itself, and I'm sure Rob and Sharon will mention a bit more about this moving forward, but we have lots of different areas within that production. So paint shop, we've got a wood shop, we've got a fantastic trim and sew facility, and then you've got what you'd imagine the main assembly area where that product comes together. And also our engine production line as well is on our site in Crewe. It's a lot of really highly skilled trades, and this is really important thing about these production apprentices is that we're bringing people into the business to focus on those highly skilled trades. Some real basic core knowledge of lean manufacturing processes and how the factory works, but then to really specialize in one of our areas such as paint, wood, sew, or assembly. But they also meet digital innovation. So it is a factory that's moving forward. It's an interesting factory at the moment to be in, with all the different digital innovations that are happening in there. And it's that amazing fusion of real craft skills and digital innovation that makes it a really interesting place to be. We as a company have a really long history of apprenticeships, and back to our founder who founded the company over 100 years ago. And there's a really good tradition. There's so many people in the business who were apprentices, started as apprentices, and therefore there's a really good culture of managing people coming through our apprenticeships into the business. And support, therefore, is never far away. We are also a surprisingly sustainable company. We've come a long way over the last few years to become Carbon Trust certified carbon neutral factory site end of 2019. You can see a picture top right of all the solar panels that provide almost 80% of our electricity on site. We've got living walls. We've got a colony of our own bees that live at the back end of the car park. And then we're looking at our supply chain as well, and how biofuels can lower our CO2 emissions in that chain. So we are sustainability is a really key thing for us and our customers, and we're really pushing forward as we move with our sustainability credentials, but also our electrification credentials as we move forward towards 2030. So what is the lean manufacturing apprenticeship? A bit about it, and I know that Rob will certainly be able to expand on this when we move into some questions. So it incorporates a level 2 diploma in lean manufacturing, and that will be delivered through a number of workshops on site in Crewe, and then backed up by support from the business functions and Rob's team. It gives you one-to-one coaching support from a training provider, so you're allocated a mentor, a learning coach who comes and helps you apply that level 2 diploma coursework on the job, and they will work very closely with the Bentley team to make sure that you're building that portfolio whilst learning your production processes. So it's all about having a good portfolio of evidence that shows that you can do all the processes and you can apply all that lean manufacturing knowledge that you learn in the workshops onto the role itself. There's then wraparound support from both the manufacturing training team and sponsoring managers and the areas. So we're going to make sure that you don't just get that standard level 2 diploma, but you'll get to understand how Bentley applies those sort of processes and those sort of theories when it's running our own production facility. And then you work day to day with someone in the area that you go into on this apprenticeship to ensure that you get all the training you need to become extremely skilled in not just one, but potentially quite a few processes in the area that you're going into. You learn whilst you earn. It's a full-time contract with Bentley for 2 years on a fixed term basis. The idea is that after those 2 years, you're fully competent and ready to go in a permanent role in our production team. So that's a really good thing. All the training's fully funded, and you get a good salary, which rises in the 2 years of the program towards the end. And it really is an extraordinary place to work. And you see some of our accreditations and some of the companies and the organisations that we work with on the screen there. We were in the top 100 apprenticeship employers this year. We're a top employer in the United Kingdom for the 10th year in a row, and we've won a number of awards in regards to our apprenticeship programs. We've also been running a COVID secure site for the last 12 months, there or thereabouts as well, and certainly one of the it's certainly highly recognised UK wide as being one of the most secure manufacturing sites. We're certainly ahead of the game when it got to restart last May time. So what's on offer and how do we apply? So our Bentley Careers website is where the vacancies are currently advertised. Once those applications come in, the managers will look at the CVs for those that meet the criteria, and then people will be called forward to an assessment centre, and we hope and expect that to happen in the first part of March. That assessment centre will take place and will be followed then by offers. So it's that one assessment centre which we're looking at. It may well be virtual at the moment, but there may be some attendance depending on how the COVID regulations move forward. And you can see the apprenticeships in the different areas that we've got there. So in production assembly itself, there's the paint shop, and then there's roles in both of our product lines. And then in the interior area, we're looking at specific skills such as sew, and then our wood shop as well. So when you're applying for these roles, if you're interested in the lead manufacturing operative, it's really important that you do a cover letter and you make it really clear which of those areas you're interested in working in, be it assembly, paint shop, sew, or wood shop. And I just thought I'd point out that slide and that page, which is from our careers website, which again asks you to make sure that you're very clear which of the 4 areas, assembly, paint, trim, sew, or wood shop, that you're interested in when you click through to apply. Perfect. If anyone does have any questions as we go along, please feel free to drop them into the chat box on the side. I think there's a representative from CareerMap has now joined us as well, so I'm sure they will be monitoring the questions as we go along. If I can ask the rest of the team to come back online for me. Thank you very much. Perfect. So what I'd like to do is just do a bit of a round robin of all our managers and apprentices that are on the call, and ask a little bit about the departments they're in and about their role in supporting the apprenticeships. So Rob, if I can start with you, could you tell me a bit about what your department does and how it's going to support the new apprentices coming in?
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Yeah, just hi everybody. Yeah, from my side, my department really is focused on developing people. So at Bentley we have, and like Thomas said, a very long history in terms of apprenticeships. and my team is kind of like the support element from a manufacturing side. We focus on anything from what the colleague needs on the shop floor to do their job, whether it be training on hybrid vehicles, whether it be training on lean topics such as 5S and problem solving. Also, we focus right the way up to management development training as well. So there's real opportunity from a training perspective, a development perspective of Bentley. Prior to working in training, though, I started early, some 20-something years ago, too many to remember now, on the shop floor as a colleague, and was able to progress to a team leader, to a manager, and to the functional manager role that I'm in now in the past 20 years. So again, you know, development is key, but also internal promotion opportunities is key. Developing our people is fundamental to that. Within that time, I've worked in multiple areas, from the trim areas, and I'm sure Sharon will talk a little bit more about that, and into assembly. I spent the majority of my time in assembly. So I can tell you a little bit about the assembly areas, Tom, if you want me to do that.
Yep, that'd be useful.
Okay, good. So like Tom mentioned, we've got two main product lines. We did have three, but we stopped building the Mulsanne last year. So we've got two main product lines, the Continental platform and the Bentayga platform. The Continental has three models: the Continental GT, the Flying Spur, and the Coupe. Bentayga has the, as it stands at the moment, one derivative, which is the standard SUV, with plans for an extended wheelbase in the next couple of years. The areas, or the main thing to know about the assembly areas, is they operate to what we call a takt time. So that time is basically the time given to complete an operation. There are so many stations in each of the assembly lines, and each of those stations is given an allocated amount of work to do within that takt time. So if you are successful with your application to be an assembly apprentice, you will not only will be learning on the product, you will be learning with us in certain areas in a secure, safer environment, should we say, but you'll also get the opportunity to learn on the product with our skilled workforce, and be able to build Bentleys yourself, following on from a very comprehensive training program. Okay, Tom?
Bro, thanks, Rob. Another good start and a good introduction to the assembly area. So that's very much working on the final assembly of the product. Sharon, if I can move on to yourself, because I know we've got half of our lean manufacturing operative apprentices will go into the SO area this year. So could you give us an overview of what that SO area is and the sort of things that apprentices will be doing in the area?
Yeah, so on my line, as Rob said, we do the three models. So we've actually got 14 stations on the area, and 36 processes in total. So as an apprentice, you would come in and start from the beginning, learning about the leather itself, and then following it down through a production line. So as it goes down each station, from start to finish, you'll end up with the full product of the seats for interior. So you can actually see the seats that are built in this area.
And how will the apprentice get to see all those processes and learn them all, or are we looking to focus them on one particular area when they come in?
So what we try to do is, so we get some variety, and rather than just somebody sitting on one process that's 9 minutes, it's better for them to learn perhaps just one of the seats. So we focus one person on each seat, and then they'll rotate on a daily basis through each process. So for instance, for a front squab, you could be looking at about 9 different processes just on that they would learn. So there's a different variation to it. We've got a number of different sewing machines that they'll learn the skills on. So you've got the basic flat sewing machines up to the more specific ones for twinning, for the decorative stitch and everything that we do on the top.
And everything's still pretty much done. You see a lot of people working with their hands in there, Sharon, don't you? It's still very, it's digitized, but it's traditional at the same time. Yeah,
it's a highly skilled process. So everybody will be given the tools and the understanding of how it all comes together. It's nice to see the end product. So when you know you've done from start to finish, and then you can actually see the finished product at the end, what you've actually done is quite satisfying.
I know I find it really fantastic to see anything that comes out of the factory, but to be involved hands-on on it must be another experience as well. I know we have lots of our trainees that will say, I know that out there's so many Bentleys driving around with my stitching or with my wood in them that I've worked on. So I think that's a really nice thing about the training program as well. Okay, that's super. So we've covered assembly and sew. Let's talk to April, who is in our paint shop. So this is, I guess, very much from an apprentice's point of view. But can you tell us a little bit about the types of things that an apprentice gets involved in the paint shop itself? April, you're on mute.
Is a common phrase of the
Absolutely, yeah.
So as an apprentice in paint, you are pretty much involved in all aspects from start to finish with regards to paint. So you are involved with it on the line, which we also have a tap time as well in paint. When it comes out from being sprayed by robots, which we also use, you'll be involved in basically to do with paint defects, and also if there's things that can't be corrected on the line, we also have teams dotted around everywhere to deal with any paint finish problems that can't be corrected there and then. So that might involve actually them ending up being sprayed by hand by our paint sprayers. So a lot of people do ask, I get asked a lot of time, well, don't you just have robots to spray? Well, yes, but that's not the case still. We still need people to spray these defects and things that need correcting by hand still. So there's a lot of skilled sprayers around, which you get the opportunity to shadow and be with. And that carries all the way to the end, which we've got final 2, which is also next to the line, where you get to see the cars pretty much nearly done. And you might have to fix little things to do with the paint finish. Maybe it's been knocked when it's having stuff fitted into it. But it's really amazing because you get to obviously see it again from start to finish, and seeing the paint, just the shells, go from the start of the line to seeing it finished in final 2 come all together. It's just amazing.
So what's your training been like when it comes to spraying? Because I know you learn quite a few different processes as a paint apprentice from start to finish. What's the training been like in the factory and on your IMI?
So to do with spraying on our IMI, it's been really, well, it's been amazing. Our tutor has been so helpful, as well as the guys in Bentley. There's so many skilled, really lucky to have worked alongside really skilled sprayers who've been doing it for years. So you can really learn a lot from them. And if you just make sure you get with them and you listen to them and take in everything, like be a sponge basically, you can really learn a lot directly just from them. And then having them there to shadow you and watch you whilst you're doing it and give you tips each way is just so valuable to have.
I think that's a really important part as well of any apprenticeship, but especially the hands-on trade apprenticeships, where you've really got to take on all that practical training and shadowing, which I think is really good that you get the opportunity to shadow. And actually this apprenticeship as well, because it will be based pretty much exclusively in the factory. That will be all day, every day, really taking on all the different skills and knowledge of the specialist network of people that we've got in there. So awesome. I think that'd be it's a really good opportunity. We've got 1 vacancy in our paint department. We've got 4 for sew. We've got 2 in our assembly, and the final vacancy in the production lead manufacturing operative is in our wood shop. So over to Henry. Could you, Henry, tell us a bit about the wood shop and about what you do day to day as an apprentice in there? And Henry's on mute as well.
All right, yeah. So the wood shop, it's a huge department. So you have 4 zones. So as an apprentice, where I started off, I started in zone 1, which involves with selecting veneers, mirror matching veneers, cutting veneers. So you've got veneers all across the world, really. So zone 1, you're pressing the actual veneer on the substrate to the parts what go into the car, and then that is passed on to zone 2. So on my rotation, I'd go from zone 1 to zone 2 to zone 3 to zone 4. So zone 2, that would be passed on to sand, and then the lacquer booth. The lacquer booth, that's where the veneer is clear coated. and that is cured for roughly 4 hours in ovens, and then that is passed on to zone 3, which is polish and flat. I'm currently on flat and polish at the minute, which involves the parts what have come out of the veneer, the lacquer booth, and then that's flattered and polished. So you have different sandpapers to get the clear coat to remove any orange peel, so that the surface of the lacquer is completely flat. And then if there's no faults at all with that, that is passed on to the CNC machine. So the CNC machine then machines the parts, which is then final finished product before it's into the vehicle. And then that is passed on to finesse team that check it for final defects, which is then passed on to assembly line. So there's many different roles in the wood shop to jump on, really. Also, there's a lot of colleagues who've been there for many years to gain a lot of knowledge from also. So
as an apprentice, Henry, you just described the whole process there, and you've been involved so far, I guess, in training on several of those different processes.
Yes, so because I'm in my 3rd year now, final year, I've almost completed my full training in the wood shop. And then when you've completed your full training, you go to your manager and they select where you're best working comfortably and where you've got the best knowledge, really. And then throughout the sorry, can you see me now?
Yeah, we've got you back, Henry. Far away.
Oh, yeah. So I'm in my 3rd year. So I've completed almost all my training. And then I'll be on the final job, which would be the CNC machine.
And so, Henry, that's really, really great. You've explained sort of all the different areas, and the fact that you're involved in all of them as an apprentice, I think, is really good. You get to experience the different parts of the factory, and then hopefully towards the end of the apprenticeship, we find where is best for that person to move into in a more permanent role, which is great. Rob, coming back to yourself, when we look across all the different apprentices that we're bringing in for these lead manufacturing operatives, obviously they're going to be working in different departments. What sort of things might we do centrally to support the training program that they're going through?
I think the one thing that we really are focusing on with this apprenticeship is the lean manufacturing. So I imagine most people on the call understand what the term lean means, but what we are doing at Bentley is trying to develop a high-performing organization. And by that, what we mean is, so we are a profitable, highly skilled company, because obviously the goal is for us to be very profitable, because as employees, we all benefit from that. One of the things that we are focusing on at the moment heavily in the production areas is trying to identify efficiency within our processes. And what we're doing is we're doing some very targeted activity where we're training colleagues, team leaders, managers in ways to identify waste. And when I say waste, I don't mean waste as in terms of rubbish type of waste. I mean the waste within a process that doesn't add any value to the product. And that could be from a colleague walking too far to collect parts. It could be a way that a part is designed, so it needs manipulation before it's fitted. So really, the Lean Apprenticeship program supports some of the ongoing training that we're doing currently, and we will be doing with the new apprentices as well, about how to identify waste, how to develop ideas to improve a process. Our intention, obviously, is to continue to improve what we do to become more efficient and therefore more profitable.
Brilliant. Thanks, Rob. I think that's really important as well from my point of view, that we'll be working together to make sure that there's a lot of support around this apprenticeship, both from a manufacturing and lean manufacturing point of view, but also from a central training and apprenticeship point of view as well. April, Henry, just going back to yourself, is there anything you've been involved in? This is an example, I guess, of doing something different. But is there anything else you've both been involved in which sort of comes under the charity banner, or giving something back and supporting other apprentices coming through that you can call upon to explain to everyone?
Does Henry want to go first?
Yeah. So I've participated in going to schools, advertising apprenticeships. So I've been to local school with another apprentice who used to attend that school. We took a Bentley from Bentley as well to advertise the apprenticeship. So we spoke to year 11s, year 10s, year 9s, all throughout secondary school, telling what we do in each department, basically advertising the apprenticeships, really.
Brilliant. That's great. And we like to ensure that the people that are going back to talk to schools and universities and colleges are people that can be related to, which is yourselves. They probably don't want to hear the likes of me, Sharon and Rob talk to them about vacancies. They want to speak to people that they can relate to, or maybe 1-2 years ahead. So we think that's really important, but also hopefully gives our apprentices the pride to be able to take a car back to their school and that sort of thing, which I think is really good. April, what about yourself? What have you been involved in?
Pretty much the same as Henry, really, in regards to college, speaking to students that might be coming to end of high school or A-levels that might not be wanting to go to university, and instead of looking at doing apprenticeships, specifically what can Bentley offer them, and just being involved in talks really with how they could see themselves in different positions, different apprenticeships, what can they get from it. And yeah, it's pretty much the same.
Bro, thank you. Sharon, I want to come back to yourself because I'm aware that we've had quite a few people join us in the last 10-15 minutes. So I might just sort of loop back round very quickly to just explaining a bit more about the so area again, just aware that we've got a lot of vacancies in that area. So for those that might have missed it, is there anything that you would say is particularly unique about our interior trim and sew area that people might find interesting?
Yeah, so what we have on our area is we've actually got a viewing area that actually runs down the middle of the sewing line as well. So we have the customer experience. So what the colleagues like is customers having to see the skills that we have on the zone and all the seats that are produced for the end of the line. You can actually visit the seat build area, which we've actually got in the same shop. So not only do we get to sew all our seats, you can actually see the finished product before it actually gets built into the car itself. So you can actually go and touch and feel actually what you've been part of, which is what we tend to do with a lot of the new people that come to the area, so that they can see the finished product, so they know what they're looking for, what the do's and don'ts are, all the different types of sewing that you can see on the actual seat, along with all the decorative stitching. So all the different colours, they'll learn about all the different samples and everything else.
That's fantastic. And
so it's quite.
Go ahead, Sharon, sorry.
Sorry. Models on there that we actually produce at the moment. So in that process, you could be sewing all 3 different models that come down the same production line, so it is quite varied. So once you've got the onset skills of learning the basics, we then progress you onto the more specialist sewing machines, but you'll actually start it from the same seat from start to finish, so you can be involved in the whole end product, so you can see the finished end results, which is what a lot of people like. You can actually take pride in the work.
I think that's a really good point, actually, that we do, customers get the opportunity to visit the factory, and there's no better pride in your work to be able to show the person that's going to actually purchase the car at the end, the customer, that to see that in process and actually being produced. And is the trim and sew area just confined to one department, or are there other parts of the factory where it expands to, it stretches to?
So no, my area is all confined to one trim shop. So we're all together alongside the SUV line itself. So you've got both sewing lines working along side by side. You've got the cabin that's done actually before it comes to my area, but you've still got all the leather interior that gets sewn, so you could learn about all the different parts. What we do then is it goes down each station, and they all just get involved in it in the actual trim area itself. But customers have given us great feedback on actually having to walk through the area and see what the girls actually do and what they achieve. And the lads on there enjoy it as well, just as much. So it's not about, it's not just about females. I have got some male colleagues on my area as well.
I think that's a really important point to make, isn't it? In that we have a range of applicants for all these production apprenticeships from all backgrounds actually, and genders. So it really is a good opportunity for anyone interested in getting involved in making the vehicle.
And it's a good skill to have. So once they've learned the basics, there's no end to what they can achieve.
I really think that's a really good point. I know, Rob, you said earlier on you spent 20 years sort of building your way up in the business. I think April and Henry have probably got ambitions on where they want to go as well. But can we talk a little bit maybe before we move on to questions? Because I have noticed that I think it is in one of the questions about development and moving on in the business. What are the opportunities like to sort of get on and progress throughout the business? I don't know if Rob or Sharon might want to take that one first from a manager's point of view.
I'll take that. That's fine. Yeah. So we have a very structured development program that includes sort of individual capability assessment in terms of how their day-to-day job runs, but also their long-term career aspirations as well. So we have an opportunity through our performance reviews to talk about that with our management team about what we might want to do. So then if as a colleague we wish to progress into the role of a team leader through nomination and obviously through demonstrating the appropriate behaviours and capability, we then allow colleagues to enroll onto our development programs. And that is a mixture, it's a blended approach of on-the-job learning and classroom-based theory, topical type of learning that's associated with that role. Same with the management positions. But equally, if somebody wished to progress into a role outside of production or outside of manufacturing, we also have very clear career pathways, which means that if there's a technical qualification that's required for a specific role, it's very clear in terms of what that qualification needs to be, what the competencies are based around those profiles. So yeah, it's a very comprehensive program. The key thing for me, though, is when it comes to embarking on an apprenticeship, is to really understand the fact that you need to, if you wish to develop within the company, you need to learn and hone the skills as a production operative. So like our apprentices have done, like April and Henry are doing, is to learn everything there is to know about the car, because it really does benefit individuals to know as much as they can about the production process, to then be able to move into a position of supervision when it comes to managing other people doing those processes yourselves.
Thanks, Rob. I think that's a really good point. These apprenticeships are really focused on learning the process and learning the skills and understanding that really, really well. And that's no better position in which to sort of then further down the line think about moving on in the career. I think it's fantastic. April, what about yourself? What's your thoughts for the future? We'll move on to questions in a second. We're out of time, but what are your thoughts for the future? What would you like to see in the next 5-6 years for yourself?
Well, obviously one of the main roles, which is very obvious, is paint spraying. So obviously I'd love to develop further into a paint sprayer, but there's also that opportunity as well for panel beating technician, which our manager's been really supportive with in terms of if we all sat down and said what we're looking at, but he also said it's also important to keep your options open and still want to develop in further areas. And if panel beating is where I want to go down, he'll support that. And there's courses that I know other members of staff have gone on, which he said he's more than happy to put me on if that's the route I want to go down. So it's always nice to see that you've still got different routes to go down. You don't have to stick to the same kind of position. So you can just always expand your skills.
I think that's the beauty as well of a sort of such a multi-skilled site. Yes, we're bringing people into the business to train in specific skills, but because all that happens on one site, the opportunities are there to sort of further your skills and your development. Like you say there, April, sidewards in a way into a different skill, more versatility, or even an upwards as well. And I know, we've got plenty of apprentices who are now moving into production manager roles and team leader roles, which is good evidence of how you can progress. I'm going to take a few questions because I think we'll cover a lot of what I don't know if there was some confusion about the start time, but we are here and we've got 20 minutes left for those that joined us just before 4:30. So let's answer some of the questions. And if there's anything that you might think we've missed, then if you could just drop it into the chat and we'll try and cover it in the next 20 minutes or so. So I'm going to go first to Maria's question, about are there any apprenticeships as a product designer? Because I think I can answer that one quite quickly. The best webinar to join is probably tomorrow, where we're going to talk about our engineering degree apprenticeships. So we're going to be talking tomorrow between 4 and 5 about those engineering type apprenticeships where you're involved in the design and the preparation of the product itself before it comes into our manufacturing facility. Aidan, how many cars do Bentley plan on building this year? Rob?
Yes.
Can I hand that one over to you for a bit of an insight, maybe?
Yeah, so for 2020, as everybody can imagine, was quite a difficult year because of COVID. But actually, it was a record year for Bentley, where we were able to sell more cars than we've ever done in the company's history before. And our plan is to continue on that positive note. And for 2021, our volume plan is in excess of 14,000 cars, which is a significant difference to what we've done before. So we're going in the right direction.
Well, thank you. I think that highlights as well what an exciting time it actually is to be in the business as well. This really is a step change for the company as far as production volumes go, and there's going to be some very exciting times ahead and development and transformation. So a fantastic time to be joining the company. Is there a specific trade that lends itself more to career progression into management, or are they all equal in terms of career progression? I guess from my point of view, I would say that it's about what you put into it as an individual. Opportunities will present themselves in different part of the business. Wherever you are, there will always be the opportunity to take an opportunity or grab an opportunity with both hands.
Yeah, I agree. There is no shortcut when it comes to progression, development. We recognize the people that put in their hard work, and the people that deserve it are the ones that get there. And there's no bias towards any particular area, certainly within manufacturing.
Sharon, do you mind if I maybe ask you that in the context of that question? What is the progression? How does the structure work, I guess, in sort of how would people progress if they had the opportunity within the SO area?
So on my area, I've actually got an apprentice who's come to me a couple of years ago now, and she has actually expressed an interest in progressing up the ladder. So what we would start with doing is she's already learned all the basics of sewing, and she's got the skills to produce the seats, but then there's window rolls and everything that you can take on to start learning about the other aspects that's entailed in the job. So all these window rolls they take on and do in after hours, so that they can start progressing and start going down that route. There's also what we've got on learning is the success factors, where people can enroll onto courses themselves and start getting some background information on what they need to do for the roles that they're applying for.
I think that's a really good point, actually. And that's the advice I often give to apprentices who come to me and say, how do I get on? Well, actually look for things that make you stand out. Take on a window or a backpack role, go on the E-Academy, which is our Success Factors learning platform, and just do some learning. Understand what behaviors the business needs, and then find e-learning you can do. So it's very much about grabbing the opportunities, I think, that present themselves. But Sharon, like you say, we do our very best with apprentices and former apprentices or colleagues as well that come to us and say, I'd like to do some development, which I think that's really important.
Yeah.
George, a quick question from George. Last year I applied for the paint shop and I remember it meant going to college 1 day a week. Is this going to be the same? So that leads us on to probably quite a good discussion about the fact that this is going to be slightly different. It's not the same apprenticeship exactly that the likes of April and Henry are moving through, in that it's only a 2-year contract. So this is really focused on 2 things: lean manufacturing operations and then the trade that you're learning. So it's less academic. There's less theory to the background of it, as it were, but it's really focused on in-work workshops on lean manufacturing and then applying them alongside the trade that you are learning, depending on the area that you're in. And we've done that for a very specific reason, to make sure that those people that are coming in are really focused on that role in production, which is good. Hopefully that explains that one. There will be, there's no off-site college attendance with this particular apprenticeship. And they are post 16, Rachel. You ask if they're post 16 or post 18. There's no age limit on who can apply for these, but they are the entry requirements we're looking at are GCSEs, and we're looking for at least maths and English, especially at a level D or 3 for these particular ones. They're very hands-on apprenticeships. They are all about the practical elements of it, and then trying to apply some of the lean manufacturing techniques on top of that. Aidan, this is a bit of a out of scope, but let's answer it. Hi, what are Bentley's plans for introducing an all-electric car? Does anyone want to take that one?
I'll have that if you want.
Go on, Rob.
Shall I? So, Aidan, I suggest that you have a look online and have a research of the Bentley Beyond 100 strategy, and that will tell you everything there is to know. But in summary, Bentley do have a plan for introducing an all-electric car. So, as you're aware, there's been some very clear guidance in terms of what we should be doing from a government perspective towards electrification. But for Bentley specifically, by 2026, we aim to have at least a hybrid version of all of our models. And by 2030, we will be all electric. That is the plan. So, yes, there are plans for introducing an all electric car.
And I don't know if anyone's seen our, thanks Rob, I don't know if anyone on the call had seen our EXP 100 GT, but actually that was all electric. It was our vision for the future, 2035. However, what I think is really important to notice about it, and Sharon, I don't know if you were involved in any of the interior of that particular vehicle, but that still had the hallmarks of a Bentley inside it. Despite all the technology and all the digital advancements that were in that vehicle, it still had amazing craftsmanship in the car itself. So we see that balance as well, moving towards electrification, that some of our core skills will still remain, which I think is really important. George, if Bentley decide to hire a candidate for production from overseas, are there any accommodation schedule plan or somewhere to live in the first months? I'll pick that one up from a central point of view. And April and Henry, I might come to you about the community of apprentices we've got in a minute. From first thing to say, I guess, is that during the application process, we asked for right to work in the UK to be proved. So that's just a requirement to get an offer for one of our apprenticeships. But then secondly, if people do relocate, whether that's from within or outside the UK, and we do get both, then although there's no financial support for that relocation, we have quite a good community network of nearly 200 trainees. So that's apprentices, graduates and undergraduates. And we work very closely with anyone that said, I need to relocate to Crewe, to try and help them find accommodation in an appropriate place. It's clearly down to the individual where they want to go and live. But we've made sure that where there are opportunities to maybe house share or live with other trainees, that those opportunities are put forward. And I think that for me is one of the things that I found really great about our programs, is that there is a really good community of apprentices, graduates and undergraduates. There's lots of social things that I certainly don't know about, but they definitely go off and get involved in pre-COVID, maybe more than at the moment, but hopefully, that community will re-engage itself in the next few months. April, Henry, is there anything you can say or have been involved in when it comes to that community of apprentices?
Well, I've been involved in a few of the meetups. Obviously, there's a big group of you that get sent out messages, basically invitations really, to see if anyone wants to join for, well, this was obviously pre-COVID, for food, drinks, different activities, just to get to know one another. Maybe you've relocated. I know a few of the other apprentices relocated and they actually were sharing apartments together. So it's a really good opportunity for, if you've moved to the area and you don't know anyone, to just say yes to it, just so you can get to know more people and feel more comfortable really with who you're living with. So I definitely go and say yes to them. Personally, for me, I still travel quite a bit, so I come from North Wales, with the hope to relocating a bit closer in Cheshire. But I said yes from the point of view where obviously I don't know many people in the area, and at the time you're all new to each other, so it is really good in terms of it just develops your people skills, communication skills. So yeah, I definitely say yes to them.
Bro, thanks, April. And there's two things we have as well, which are the Apprentice Representative Committee, or the ARC, and they help represent the views of all our apprentices. I know they get involved in organising some events. And then we've got a Future Talent Social Committee as well, which takes all the undergrads and grads on board as well. And they put together quite a few of these events, which I think is really good to meet in a more social element, but it helps that networking outside of work as well. Ahmed, when do you open for applications? So we are open now. I dropped the link in the comments and I'll type it in again now for you. So on bentleycareers.com, you will find the vacancies live as we speak, and they're open at least till the 21st of February. We might keep some open longer if we need to, but I would say if you're looking to apply, get in there soon and get your application in. Laura, will I get a job afterwards? The $1 million question. So our goal, or my goal, I maybe hand over to Rob or Sharon in a second. My goal is to make sure that all our apprentices are in a position where they are able to move into a permanent role if one is available. I think it's really, that's my goal. It's really important to make sure that you as an apprentice have the competence and the confidence to move into permanent role wherever that might be in the business. It is a fixed term contract. I think it's important to say that on our apprenticeships, but our retention rate, i.e. those moving into permanent roles, is very, very high because you've put the effort in, we've put the effort in, and we really want to keep that skill in the business at the end of the program. So over 90% of our apprentices end up in permanent roles. Rob or Sharon, I don't know if you've got any views on that particular question.
Yeah, just to re-emphasize your point there, Tom, about the retention rates. It is very high. We develop our apprenticeship strategy based on what we expect to see in terms of the skills needed, and we also operate kind of managing our numbers, our headcount, as it were, in terms of age, demographic, and things like that. So quite rightly, it's a fixed term contract, but if you put the effort in and you are a shining star, as it were, then it would be silly of us to let that individual go when we need and we know we need the skills for the future. So really, a lot of it is about you as individuals, about your drive and commitment in terms of the role. But yeah, like Tom said, the retention rate is high, and we are planning to retain as many apprentices as we possibly can.
Bro, thanks very much, Rob. Sienna, how is training delivered? So two main ways, workshops. So there'll be a training provider we will work with who's not to be confirmed, but it'll be a specialist training provider in lean manufacturing. They will deliver a number of workshops, especially in the first 6 months of the program. And then after that, you'll move on to doing some much more specific work with your areas and with coach, and some training as well through Rob's team from the central manufacturing. So it's all in work training that's delivered. Even when it's not on the job, it's within Bentley itself. Katie, here's a good question, maybe for Sharon. As having a good grade in textiles from back at school, is having some kind of sewing and stitching background of benefit for applying for an apprenticeship at Bentley?
So you don't need no background in sewing at all. We have started from scratch with a number of people that are actually on my area. So no, you won't be treated any differently than if you've had background or not. We'll do all the training. So we've got colleagues you can sit alongside you and support you all the way through all the different various processes that we do have. We've got a little area down the bottom of my zone where we can do off-the-job training in the beginning, get used to the sewing machines. You learn all about what the different types of sewing machines, how to thread the machines up, do the basics at first, and then do on the job once you've got the skills of actually being able to use the sewing machine. So as to the answer, it's good if you've got background, but it doesn't make any difference if you haven't.
I think that's a really important point, that you don't have to have the experience here. This is all about people right at the start of your careers, or you may be career changing. Like I said, age isn't a factor in applications. But where you do think you have some background that's relevant, try and pull that out in your application as well. But it's not necessary. It's not compulsory to have any. So a couple of questions just about, can you apply to start next summer? No, so these applications are about this September. So if you're applying now, the role will start on the 13th of September this year. If you're looking at next summer, please wait. Think about how you build up your experience. Think about how you might do things outside of your academic study to help build your portfolio of when you apply, what you can say you've done that's helped build your skills and behaviours for this role. Henry and April, maybe Henry, comes to you briefly. What sort of things did you do, not just academically, to help with your application to Bentley?
Yes. So before I applied for Bentley, I'd done a motor vehicle course. So I'd done that for 2 years. So I'd done a level 2 motor vehicle and a level 3 motor vehicle. During those times, Bentley were advertising work experience. So I applied for work experience within trim development and thoroughly enjoyed that. And then from doing work experience, that made me realise what type of industry I want to work in. So I'd heavily advise to try and get some work experience under your belt. That would definitely help within your application. And then when I finished my motor vehicle, I went on to a bench joinery course, which I thought would help with my wood application. And then I'd done another work experience within Bentley. So obviously that paid off, doing work experience and relevant college courses.
I think that's a really good point. Henry, you obviously did a lot quite relevant to Bentley as well, but I think it's a good thought to think about, what can you do if you need to do something else outside of your academic study, find something that's relevant. But that could also, at this moment in time, it could be anything, especially with the amount of online learning. Going and doing a bench joinery course isn't the easiest thing at the moment, but there could be online courses you can do for free potentially. I'm even looking at things like coding, languages, something that says you can go and learn something that's different and you can pick it up and you can apply it. So don't always think, oh, I can't go and physically do a course at the moment. There's plenty you can probably look at online. And then just go back to Henry's point on work experience. It's probably worth mentioning that we have a very limited number of work experience placements now. I mean, we're probably talking 4 or 5 years ago, Henry, when we had a lot of on-site work experience happen. At the moment, we stopped our on-site work experience for obvious reasons, but we are doing quite a lot of virtual events. So I would keep an eye on the careers website. I'd keep an eye on the company's LinkedIn and Twitter accounts, because we do push quite a lot of things out on there, which are opportunities to interact with the company. And the more of those you can take, the better. How many apprentices are you recruiting for this position? We'll recap. I think we're almost at the end. So I'll cover George's question quickly, and then we'll come back to that, because we'll just do a quick round robin of everyone before we go. So would having previously worked for Bentley with an agency be beneficial? I think back to Sharon's point there on, while some things related to Bentley are not a bad thing, and pull those out in your interview, your assessment where you can do, your application where you can do, you could also be applying for this with no experience and no previous interaction with Bentley as well. And it's very much about how you make yourself stand out in that application. So don't worry if you haven't got that experience, but if you have, think about how you pull the right things out of that experience. So just having worked here is not necessarily a massive benefit in itself, but how you then look at that and make that stand out in your application is important. John, just very quickly, degree apprenticeships in production. This year, our degree apprenticeships in production are actually in the digital areas, so our production planning. So you might want to pop onto the careers website and have a look at some of our digital degree vacancies. But there's no manufacturing engineering degree vacancies in production this year. So finally, how many apprentices are we recruiting? I'm going to just go around the houses, and Rob, if you can cover assembly off for me. Just a really quick rundown again of your areas, what happens there, and how many apprentices. So Rob, we've got assembly apprentices. We've got 2 going into assembly.
2 into assembly, 1 into paint. Yeah, sorry, that's April's. Yeah, 2 into assembly, 1 into Bentayga, into the Bentayga platform, which is the SUV platform, 1 into Continental. And on the Continental platform, we build the GT, the Flying Spur, and the Coupe.
Bro, thanks, Rob. Sharon, your area for 4 apprentices?
Yeah, so in my area, they'll be learning the skills to produce the interior. So the leather interior could be anything from cabin to headrest to the actual seats themselves. Different number of processes. Start with the basics and then work the way up to the end product.
Bro, thanks, Sharon. April, for the paint shop, 1 apprentice for the paint shop. You're on mute again.
You can tell I'm not used to this. Yeah, so obviously we're looking for 1 to help with all aspects of paint finish from start to finish, including rectifying defects to spraying car parts themselves.
Thanks, April. And Henry, we've got 1 vacancy in the wood shop. Henry's on mute as well.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, so 1 vacancy in the wood shop. So you'll be learning throughout the whole wood shop, not just 1 function. So it's quite a good development apprenticeship, really, if you want to get hands-on type of work.
Bro, thanks, Henry. So just to recap, the apprenticeships for production are now online at bentleycareers.com. You need to do a blank careers search effectively on the apply now button, and then look for the lean manufacturing operative. When you're applying, please make sure 2 things. A, you write a cover letter. It's amazing how many people don't write a cover letter, but it's really important because you need to make it very clear in that cover letter which of the areas of production you're interested in working in, and please try and pick 1 of those areas, because as you can imagine, working with leather is different to paint, and working with paint, which is different to wood, which is different to assembly. So we just really need to understand your wishes and the area you want to work in when you make that application. Thanks to the Bentley team for joining us. Thank you very much for your time today. If you have any other questions that we've missed from people joining the call, there is a contact us email on the careers website. You can send a message to, and it will get redirected the right way. We're going to close the webinar down now. Thank you to everyone, and I hope you've taken a lot away from today's session. Thank you.
Thanks.